Welcome to another edition of What Would Aaron Say? I'm Aaron, this is what I say.
Okay, so today we're going to continue with Building the Better Belt series. If you haven't seen video number 9, go back and watch it, because I'm assuming that you know all of that stuff before I'm going on to this. The idea is to build a better belt in stages so that you aren't trying that insta-belt thing where you're just yelling your way into it, because there's no good ending to an insta-belt. There's no way to get out of notes gracefully, and so you wind up just having to stay in that yell the whole time. So, after you've done the basic strengthening exercises, it's all about having closure without having to blow a lot of air to get that closure. This is sort of basically the Barbra Streisand technique, which is done very well for many people. The idea here now is, what comes next before we start becoming the belt that everybody knows? Well, it's breathing. You need a breathing system that is unbiased, meaning it has no favoritism built in. In the last video I talked about, let's assume that that's already done. Well, okay, so this is in case that isn't done.
Since belting is really just dragging mixes up, let's say that you're going to sing the recipe of a G, let's say a 50-50, a half head, half chest, but you're going to drag it up to a B. If your breathing system has a bias in it, meaning as you get to the end of a phrase, you start getting chestier and chestier and chestier, now you're trying to drag a recipe up a fifth instead of dragging it up a third, which is absurd. Because if you're going to be dragging mixes higher, the last thing you need is for it to get chestier and chestier the higher you go, or chestier and chestier just because you're at the end of your breath. So that is why you need an unbiased breathing system if you're going to be belting, aka dragging mixes up.
So this is our friend Andrew, he's going to help us out today. Thanks a lot, Andrew. So we're going to look at a couple of breathing systems, but first let's talk about the inhale.
What's really going on? Your diaphragm. Your diaphragm is something that everybody talks about. Sing with your diaphragm, sing with your diaphragm. Well, anyone who says that is half right. You can inhale with your diaphragm. Diaphragm is a muscle, and like all muscles, it can only do one job. It can only contract. So your bicep contracts, and then your tricep contracts to open your arm. I cannot push my arm open with my bicep. Do you get a sense of that? So this is attached and it pulls, and this is attached and it pulls. So that's that. So your diaphragm is at the bottom of your rib cage in an arch. At rest, it is in an arch. And when it does the only job it can do, which is to tighten, it flattens out, sucking air into the lungs.
Your diaphragm is here, it goes down and forward. So as it does so, it's going to displace these abs. So take a deep breath. Great, that's all it needs to be. Now, let's look at a couple of other options, which is people who will raise their shoulders. Raise your shoulders as far as they will go. Inhale. Notice that you're actually narrower in this instance, so you can relax. So he's narrower in this instance, so his lungs literally don't have as much room. So to get as much room as possible, you want your ear and your shoulder basically as far away from each other as you can get them.
It cannot push the air out of your lungs. Instead, another set of muscles, which are considered antagonists to it, all muscles come in antagonistic pairs, so your bicep and your tricep and your quadriceps and your hamstrings, and this muscle and this muscle. So the idea is muscles work against each other, so your diaphragm is, while it's doing its job, stretching out another set of muscles. So as you inhale, if you're not raising your shoulders, your diaphragm is going down, your abs are going to move out. That's just going to happen.
So now that's the inhale. Now what to do about the exhale?
So there's this little secret that I figured out long ago that in all of the voice books I've read, and I got them all, there's only one voice book that even mentions this, and it's called the valsalva maneuver, or the valsalva reflex. And it's found by this guy named Antonio Valsalva, and it's the thing where you pop your ears on an airplane by holding your nose and then blowing blowing, and then your eustachian tubes pop. But it also describes when you do it against your cords, like if you lift a heavy box, or during forceful defecation, or during coughing. And the basic situation here is you are hardwired to have a relationship between your cords and your upper abs, your solar plexus. So if you poke into the base of your tongue, straight up, this is not back, this is up, and then you poke into your upper central abs, and cough, just lightly, or just clear your throat, you'll notice that those two places tighten at the same time. So if you've got a breathing system that allows for your upper abs to grow tight, you're going to have a tight throat. So now let's talk about what happens to the valsalva reflex when it's being used, or valsalva maneuver. Say ah, ah. Now, after you sing that note, then tighten right there. That's that's it. That's a choke that's starting to happen. So now, instead, we don't want any of that upper ab clenching during the exhale. None. It's going to happen a little, but at least the sort of compass heading to go for is no upper ab clench. All right, I know we're getting really technical here, but this is the breathing system that I teach. This is what you really want to know. And it's part of the Italian breathing system, which I talk about towards the end. If you want to know more than any voice teacher you've ever had, watch this video to the end. So instead, you're wanting the lower abs to pull in, and you're eventually going to work your way around to the sides. So the mantra would be in and to the side. That leaves the chest high. It leaves the upper abs out of it. You're not going to get any throat choking in that, and you're going to have a neutral air system. So blow your SH while you get taller. That's what's going in first. This is not. This is passive.
Now, after that system, the idea is poke your fingers in on below your ribs but above your hips, and then blow a very sudden SH. So you can feel those muscles getting pushed out of the way. If you poke in really hard and then blow, you feel your fingers get shoved out of the way. The idea here is, as you're blowing that air, these abs have to transfer around to the sides. Otherwise, they're going to work their way up to your upper central abs, and you're going to get tight, whether you meant to or not.
And let's say that you're on some kind of a mixy note, because we know that belting is really dragging any recipe higher than it naturally would choose to go. So that's not to just say it's all chest voice. There's mixes that are being dragged up. If you've got a mix, and you want to blow more air at that, and your upper abs tighten, you're going, I'm exaggerating, but you're going to get tighter in that situation. If you're using something that isn't an upper ab system to blow more air, you have a chance of actually keeping that recipe as you get louder. So if in your inhale situation, inhale, those muscles moved, now blow an SH and get taller.
Those same muscles that moved on the inhale are what need to move on the way out. So in order to diagnose what you're doing, here's what you do first.
All right, with a hand, press into your upper abs and your lower abs. Do this for yourself. Okay, so splitting the belly button, actually, so it's a little further than that. Press in, good. Now, blow an SH. Now, this one's been trained by me, so he knows. The lower abs lead in. If, instead, the upper abs, so do the upper ab. You're still actually doing it. Can you make the lower abs more active than the upper abs? That's the whole goal. Blow an SH. And notice, do I feel my upper abs get tight? Do I feel my lower abs get tight? Am I getting shorter? Am I getting taller? The overall idea here is get taller. If you don't get taller, it's very likely the upper abs are going to crunch eventually. So the end of a phrase will be, whether you mean for it to be or not. If you blow an SH that lengthens your torso, generally speaking, you'll feel it in the lower abs. And you want to follow that through into the side abs. That's the basic breathing system right there. That's all it is.
The abs are going in and to the side, starting at the lower central abs. This will generally avoid any upper ab clench, and then you won't be having the throat tightening up on you at the end of phrases or when you start to get louder.
Any breathing system that avoids tensing the upper central abs would be the way to go. There's three basic ones, two primary and then one sort of newcomer. The Germanic Nordic system, which I'm going to talk about in a second, the Italian system, and then what you might call rib reserve breathing. The problem with all of them is that there's not even just one version of them. The Italian also has the appoggio technique inside of it, but we're going to deal with that in a second.
The exhale can happen in two basic ways. The first is the Germanic Nordic method, which I despise, and we're going to show you right now why.
Now, the Germanic Nordic system says, press out for the inhale, and then to exhale, press out and down some more. That makes no sense at all. That's like saying, I'm going to tighten my bicep like this, to bend my arm, and then to make my arm go the other direction, I'm going to tighten that muscle again. That can't be so.
The Germanic Nordic system wants you to inhale like we just did, which is great, so they agree with that, and I'll do that. Now, I want you to blow an SH while pooching your abs out. Notice that his only option is for the chest to depress. I'm so glad you're wearing stripes, because you can actually see what's going on. If you are sticking your abs out while you're blowing air, your only other option is to shove your sternum into your lungs in order to depress the air. So at the end of that, your next inhale is either going to be, and now we've got a heaving chest kind of situation, or your next inhale is going to be more abs going out. Well, that can't be so. If your inhale is abs out and your exhale is abs out, how can that be?
That's why I would like for everyone to stop teaching the Germanic Nordic breathing system, because it's pointless and it doesn't make any medical academic sense, and it's old, and just because it's old doesn't mean it's great. So is slavery. Slavery's old and we don't think that's great anymore, so just because it's old doesn't mean it's got validity.
I don't really love it, but it's going on in most of the colleges. For some reason, people are doing this thing which we would call probably rib reserve breathing, which is basically, so put your hands on your upper rib cage, or your rib cage back there, and then take a breath into those ribs. Now, keep those ribs out and blow an SH. Now, he is doing what we already know to do. The problem with this technique is no one ever teaches that chunk of it. People want you to inhale into the rib cage. You can relax. People have you inhale into that rib cage
And then maintain that outward situation with the ribs while you're singing. The problem with that is, 100% of the time, when I ask people, how are you moving the air, they have no idea. It is an inhale-only technique. You're pulling your ribs out to the inhale, and that's great because it's basically causing a stretch in this upper middle ab area, so you're not going to have an upper ab clench. But then when you go to sing, and you want to move some air, they got no idea how to move the air.
And that's where we get to the Italian system.
The Italian notion would be to have the air be expelled by abs coming in, which makes a lot of sense. Anyone who's used a tube of toothpaste knows what they need to know about breathing. Namely, that is, you squeeze something, air goes out. He is airtight. You don't have holes I don't know about, I assume. So you've got to clench something. You've got to tighten something in order for that air to go out of your body. And if you're pushing your abs out, you're just going to press your chest down. And if you're just keeping your rib cage out, that's not an exhale. That's an inhale-only technique. Okay, so I said I would deal with the Appoggio technique, so here it is. The Italians have a version of their breathing system called the Appoggio technique, which is from the Italian appoggiare, meaning to lean on. The notion being that you're leaning on your breath, which is cute, but what they're talking about is there's a force coming in, and we agree on that, that's great, but that there needs to also be this force in the abs that's holding them from coming in. So you're sort of fighting your own self. It's a little like driving with your brakes on. You don't need to do it. This notion that breath is going to accidentally escape out your body unless you hold it in is nuts. You just blow as much air as you need. You don't need to drive with the brakes on. So that's why I don't deal in the Appoggio technique. It's a waste of time and energy.
So what we want to do for belting from hereafter is, the inhale is get bigger, basically. Get fat on the inhale and get skinny on the exhale, which is the lower abs coming in and then feeding around to the side abs. So that's what I have to say.